Hey y'all, this is James with D-Heart Reptile Design. I'm sorry it's been so long since our last video. I wanted to do a informational video for our new reptile keepers on ball pythons mainly. We have a few different setups in the hobby that we like to prefer. When you get your baby ball python for a first pet, most people are going to probably go with a glass enclosure. I would suggest, when going with a glass enclosure on a baby ball python, not one this size, but a baby ball python, you probably want to go with something this size. Actually, this is at Petco. They sell this for like 50 bucks with a whole bunch of stuff in it. It's called a creature, anything. This is meant for like black widows and spiders and tarantulas and other things, but we used it during the first several year or maybe year and a half on some of them for our first pets. We kept a substrate of, sorry y'all, I'm like, brr, I'm trying to read. We kept a substrate of forest floor at first. We tried to do the cocoa husk, and it's hard to get a hold of that stuff. And when we did get it, you know, it would go in there and it just got dirty very quickly and it's very expensive. And so we went with forest floor because honestly it was just something that we could pick up at the pet store. I know it's terrible, but we were beginners. We would saturate it when we put it in there. We had our ball python, Mr. Cinnamon Von, anyway, it was a cinnamon albino. And we had him on there, and I noticed it was either too moist or too dry, or it didn't get dirty very quickly, but I did notice a stench of mildew after just maybe a week and a half of him being in there. And I noticed that his scales, what you end up getting, geez, won't you freak out? What you end up getting is scale rot, and that's when the scales actually present darkening, and it's just bacteria getting up underneath the scales. So us in Houston, our houses in the summertime, we carry just in our daily living around 40 to 50% humidity in our home with the AC running. In the wintertime, we carry around 20% humidity because the heater's on and the heater dries out the air. So with our first ball python, we were taking temperature swings because the heat, this thing isn't very well insulated, so we had to insulate the sides. We had to insulate the top. We had a belly warmer, and our temperatures were still fluctuating pretty drastically. We were, again, trying to mist, and then our humidity would go way too high, and then we'd hold off on the misting, and it would drop incredibly low when the heater kicked on. So it was just a tough thing. We had beautiful plants, and the thing looked great, but it wasn't really all that easy to keep up with the animal, and it was very hard to get good sheds sometimes. And I know a lot of ball python keepers will just say, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. And I'm sure you can go to the forums and find out 100 things that I didn't try. But for me, it was just simpler to go to a rack system. The reason for is because this rack system, as you can see, it carries great amount of humidity. Every single one of these has a humid side and the other side is more dry. So they could also regulate their temperatures. The humid side has their water dish on it, so that's more humid and cooler. Whereas the warm side is a little drier, so they can kind of go back and forth. Now, don't tell. These guys will get the whole thing wet if you let them. I mean, they'll dunk themselves in the water bowl and get their dry side wet. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about that. Well, with this, you have a dry side and a wet side. No, everything is either wet or everything is either dry. So it became really, really hard to maintain, whereas this was far easier. We went to paper towels after we started getting that belly rot, and I was told to put him on paper towels. We had a little run-in with snake mites, or I thought they were snake mites. Something that you don't realize with bedding is that they come with mites already on them. You know, you have to understand they're not going to put pesticides on this wood before they give it to your pet. So unless you're freezing your substrate, you are apt to get mites. And I like to believe I keep a pretty sterile environment for animals. and paper towels is the way to go for me, because I'm never fighting a lack of humidity. We have the heater on today. It's been getting down in the 30s and 40s at night, and still with the tub setup, it's still maintaining its humidity really well. We maintain around a 40 to 50% humidity. I will sometimes mist them down if I notice they're real close to shed, just to make sure they have a great shed. And I would say about 95% of the time we have perfect sheds every single time. You can see this beautiful animal that I have here. This one is a orange dream yellow belly. This one's going to be going into our highway projects probably next year. She's definitely not ready this year, but she's going to go next year. She's voracious. The temperatures are dropping and then picking up and dropping again, so that makes them more apt to feed. I love this. This is my favorite thing on this snake. You see that little ringer at the end? That's so cool. Anyway, so I wanted to do an informational video for first timers. Just understand there's going to be a lot of stuff that you can try. Just keep trying new things. If you want to keep a glass enclosure because you want to take a look at your animal, I completely understand, and I'm right there with you. If it was less of a pain to do with this many animals, I would be doing that. I love the fact that I could see my animal whenever I wanted. I'm still probably like to go to a PVC enclosure where I could see my animals and keep the humidity where it needs to be. So that's going to be something that I'm going to have in the future. But just for right now, this is what we have. And it works really, really well. The animals are healthy. It's not like they're going to be able to tell you, hey, Dad, I really would like some forest floor. You know, these are reptiles. You know, they're not going to be able to tell you. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, well, my snake likes. Yeah, as long as they're eating right and they're shedding, I'm not going to argue with that. So this is James with D Heart Reptile Design. My kids are falling apart now, so I got to cut off. Please like and subscribe, and we'll check in again.